Hello, everyone. Welcome to the attic. I hope everyone is enjoying their early summer so far and everything's going great for everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Carol. Let me know that you can hear me okay and say hi to me and tell me where you're from and join in with the live conversation this evening. Tonight is Colonial Records Part 3. This is part 3 of our Colonial Records Summer Extravaganza, where we are sharing all of our favorite colonial records. Well, maybe not all of them, but some of our favorite resources or materials dating to the colonial period. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on Delaware and Vermont and Rhode Island. And you're going to see if you don't know this already, okay, if you don't know this already, when you research in the New England area and a lot of the middle colonies, there's a vast difference about how the records are stored versus in other colonies, primarily what I'm talking about in the southern colonies. There's a great big difference, and we're going to get into some of that tonight. I'm going to share with you some of my techniques of what I use in specific areas. Okay, so hello, Melissa says hi from New York. Hello, Melissa. And we're getting ready to do New York. That's coming up real soon. New York, and I'm going to do another little extra series on Pennsylvania because when I did Pennsylvania, that was on part 1 of this series. I neglected to mention some very important ones that are very dear to me in that area. So we will be adding a little bit more for Pennsylvania. Okay, and Tennessee Man's here from Middle Tennessee. Welcome, you guys. Welcome to the attic. It's a little warm up here this evening. I hope you guys are surviving the heat wherever you are and that you're having a great summer so far. And Beverly's here from Southern Indiana. Welcome, Beverly. Welcome. Okay, you guys. And share if you research the live chat on YouTube, and it won't let you share the links. I'm working on that. But if you do have a particular source that you want to share with others in one of these areas, please feel free to do it. You can at least type it out and name the source and share it with others. Hi, David. How are you guys doing? I hope that the presentation and the conference went well this past weekend. I was thinking of you guys. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us this evening. But I was thinking of you guys. I hope everything went well through your presentation and your conference over the weekend. All right, you guys, we're going to get started with for Delaware. It's the first one on my list. What I've been doing for the series is I have been placing the ones that have links. I will let you know as I name them that they are digitized and they're available online, and I do have a link to share with you. And I will let you know that as I call them out. For the ones that I don't have a link to, I'll let you know that. Some of them I have looked up on worldcat.org. It's one of my go-to places to find particular books or resources or materials in various libraries. So some of them I've looked those up on there. And I'll let you know how many copies are available and which, you can go on worldcat.org and check out which location is closer to you. There are not, I will say this, there are not many online actual digitized original records, okay, that are online. And there's a reason for this, and we're going to get into that, particularly for Vermont and Delaware. Rhode Island has a bit more. But as we go, I will start out with court records, and then I will go on to land and taxes and census records of the colonial period, end up with church records and other miscellaneous records. All of the links that I share, you can find them in 2 locations. They'll be listed right underneath this video once we get completed tonight. I'll have a list of them, and I will also list them on our community page. So you can go on our YouTube channel, so you can go to both places. A lot of people, I got a couple of emails saying, well, we went to your website to see if we could find them. You're not going to find them on the website. So stick here to our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find all the links that we mention on our YouTube channel. Okay, and David gave a thumbs up. That means y'all did good. That's great. Congratulations, you guys. All right, so we're going to get started with Delaware. And, Delaware is different. Okay, it was settled by the Dutch, 1632. Okay, England conquered the area in 1664. So when that happened, records changed. Okay, so another thing really important that I try to remember when I'm researching the New England area or the Middle Colonies is to get my timeline down. What timeline am I really researching? And then once I get that down, then I figure out exactly what's going on in that area. And I start from there. So get your timeline and see what all is happening. Pennsylvania and Maryland claimed large portions of Delaware throughout the 17th century to the early 18th century. They did. Pennsylvania laid claim to it, and so did Maryland. So for court, the county court records began actually in 1684, but there are a few earlier records that do exist dating to 1642. But as with all of these colonies that I speak about tonight, I urge you, I can't say that enough, I urge you to seek out the original records for your court documents. So I'm going to start out, this is a book, and I'll name if it's a website or a book or other materials. I'll let you know. Oh, and let me say this before we get started with these sources. My number one thing, the number one resource that I use for this particular area are maps. I do. That's the very first thing I go to is maps. Why? I look for a map in the particular time period in which I'm researching. I'm getting information about what that location looks like, what other larger settlements are where throughout that colony. I'm getting a gathering of information, a visual of what it appears like. I'm looking at major roads. I'm looking at larger settlements, trading spots in that area. Colonial people, during the colonial period, people had to trade. That's very important. Which major waterways are near there? I start with maps, always in this area. Okay. All right, Court Records, Delaware. This is a book, Colonial Delaware Wills and Estates to 1880. An index by Donald Odell Verdin. Last name is Virdin. Published by Heritage Books in Maryland in 1994. There are 92 copies when I looked at worldcat.org and various libraries. This is a pretty rare book. Pretty rare. Okay, another thing to remember about court records with Delaware is that you're going to find a lot of the early court records in Pennsylvania. You're going to find some in Maryland as well. And I have found actually other records in New Hampshire. I have no idea why, but I remember that. So I wanted to add that in there. Okay, this is a digitized website. It's Family Search. And the name of this resource is Philadelphia Administration, 1683 to 1744. It has 2 volumes. They are all microfilmed. They're digitized. It is accessible through a Family Search Library Center. Find your closest Family Search Library Center that is close to you and make an appointment. With mine that is close to me, I have to make an appointment. They're only open 2 days a week. 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And once I make that appointment, then I can go in and view the records that I want to look. But the digitized file contains 193 images, which include probate records and land records for present day Delaware. Okay. And like I said, I always recommend researching court records on a county level. That's on the ground level. Okay, land. The Duke of York issued land grants after England conquered the area in 1664. So the Duke of York, and when you were researching Delaware, you have to remember the Duke of York. Okay, this is a book, Original Land Titles in Delaware, commonly known as the Duke of York Record, being an authorized transcript from the official archives of the state of Delaware and comprising the letters, patent, permits, commissions, surveys, plats, confirmations by the Duke of York and other high officials from 1646 to 1679. It was printed by order of the General Assembly of the State of Delaware in 1903. It contains approximately 214 pages, and it is digitized. It's available online. I will provide a link for that. Okay, number 2 is also a book, Warrants and Surveys of the Province of Pennsylvania, including the 3 lower counties, 1759. This was written by Reinberg, Slattery, and Hughes, and also the Pennsylvania Department of Records. They published it. Publishing company was the Bookmark in Indiana in 1975. It is digitized, and it is available. This also includes the counties of Kent, Newcastle, and Sussex. Okay, and I will provide a link for that. The next one is also a book, Delaware's Fugitive Records and Inventory of the Official Land Grant Records Relating to the Present State of Delaware, published 1980 by the Department of State, Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs. This is a great source to locate records that are stored in Pennsylvania and in New York for lands in Delaware. Now, when I went on worldcat.org for this particular book, there were 16 copies available. This is a very rare book. And again, the name of it is Delaware's Fugitive Records. It lists the records that Pennsylvania and New York has for Delaware. Okay, moving to census records in Delaware. The first tax list for the province of Pennsylvania and the 3 lower counties, 1693 by Adams, published 1994. Very rare book. Although portions of the book are found online, not all of it, but the Delaware area is not among them that is found online. Okay, and when I went to go to see my source on it was Google Books. Okay, Google Books had the first 3 sections of the book digitized, but the Delaware section was not included. Okay. Okay, another book, Delaware Church Records, a collection of baptisms, marriages, deaths, and other records and tombstone inscriptions from 1686 to 1880 by Raymond Clark, published in 1986. This book includes the Baptists, Episcopals, Methodists, Presbyterians, and Quakers. Very rare book. Very rare book. Look on worldcat.org. I had a friend who actually had this book when I was conducting research in the early 1990s in this area. And this book is one of my favorites. And I am going to also say the name Raymond Clark. He has written other books about Delaware and the early settlements, early families that arrived there. He's the author to follow for that area. Okay, another book is Colonial Churches and Meeting Houses in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware by Philip Wallace. It was published in 1931, and it is digitized and available. It consists of about 312 pages, and I will provide a link for that. And it's got some very interesting information about the colonial churches and early meeting houses in that area. Okay, other records are Court Records of Kent County, Delaware, 1680 to 1705, Volume 1 by Leon Ballinger, published by American Historical Association in 1959, consists of 382 pages. There were over 450 copies of this book that was available only through the second printing, the second edition printing. And that occurred in 1975. So because they decided to do a second printing on this book, now we have plenty of copies of it. So just check on worldcat.org for the Court Records of Kent County. I will say that Delaware is one of the most difficult colonies to research. The state archives are available. They're available by appointment, and they do offer a search tab on their website. Which I will share with everyone tonight. But I want to, if you don't already know this, you're limited on what's available online, okay? You're very limited. So and this search tab is different. You have to think about exactly what you're looking for in order to use this search tab. And when you see this link, then you'll quickly understand what I'm saying. But I will share that link with you, and that's from the Delaware State Archives. Okay, and see, well, Robin's here from Huntsville, Alabama. Ooh, welcome, Robin. Whitney from Ardmore, Tennessee. Okay, and can you say the name of the book once more? Tell me which one, Whitney, and I wouldn't mind repeating it. If you'll let me know which one you want me to repeat. What was it about? Another great book is also a history of the original settlements on the Delaware. Okay. And from its discoveries by Hudson to the colonization under William Penn by Benjamin Ferris. It was published in 1846, has about 350 some pages. It is digitized, and I will share a link with you on that. It has some very good, interesting information about the early settlements in Delaware, and has information about William Penn and his involvement with Delaware. Okay, now we're going to move on. You guys ready? Vermont. In Vermont, here you have conflicting land records, and it's similar to Delaware. When you research land records in Delaware, you're going to find conflicts everywhere you go in Delaware. Like I said, Maryland was issuing land grants in Delaware. Pennsylvania was doing the same thing, even New York, and I have found some in New Hampshire. I don't know why, but they all issued land in Delaware. Vermont, you're going to have the very same thing. You're going to run into that with land grants there too. For the most part, you've got Massachusetts that controlled the lands up to 1772. 1772. She says, I'm looking at Owen's surname. I think you mentioned linking it. No worries. Okay, I'm not going to worry. Whitney, you can always, once we release the live stream as a video, you can replay it back. And if for some reason you can't understand exactly what I said, then you can just shoot me a message, and I'll be happy to help you. So Massachusetts was controlling the lands in Vermont up to 1772. Okay. And land grants were also issued by New Hampshire again in 1749 to 1764. And New York issued land grants from 1764 to 1776. Those are your magic dates. That's your magic dates. And that's where your timeline really comes into play here. All right, land was a messy situation in all of the New England area. It was. You know, I've had people to tell me, well, I've researched North Carolina. I've never seen such a mess with all the land grants in North Carolina. North Carolina was a mess. I agree. But nothing compares to when you get into the New England colonies. It is a true mess. And I think it also contributed to the reason why a lot of people decided to migrate south. And that's all I'm going to say about that. You'll see once you get into the court records what I'm saying. But yeah, it was a mess. But let's get started with some of our favorites in present-day Vermont. One of my favorite online sources is a 4-volume set published in 1870 by the Vermont Historical Society. And they are titled Collections of the Vermont Historical Society. And I will share that link with you tonight, right after the live stream. It is one of my favorites for that area. Here is another book, The Records of the Council of Safety of Vermont, 1775 to 1836. This is 8 volumes, published 1873 to 1880. It is digitized, and I will share the link. For court records, like I said, I always suggest searching on a county level original records. Okay, original records. For land, here is a very good book that I have referred to often. It's Massachusetts Land Grants in Vermont, 1672 to 1772 by John Cambridge. published by Harvard University Press in 1920. It's completely digitized, it's indexed. This book gives you a detailed history about the land grants in Vermont, and I will share the link with you. Now, Vermont has 18 probate districts, to the best of my knowledge, 18 probate districts. Now, during the colonial period, they had 7, okay? And I refer to these dates. I have my list for my little my Vermont list, or my Vermont card catalog for my attic files here. And I refer to these dates of these probate districts. And I'm going to read them off to you, the ones that existed during the colonial period and the dates in which they existed. You have Bennington at 1778, and they are in alphabetical order. Franklin at 1780. Manchester, 1779, Marlborough, 1781, Orange District, 1792, Westminster, 1783, and then Windsor at 1787. Before the establishment of these districts, the probate records were stored, not in Vermont, they were stored in New York. New York, and some records were also located in Connecticut as well. Okay. One of the best ground resources is the Howard Alba Leahy Library. Has any of you guys ever heard of it? It's in Vermont. Now, I just recently learned that they are now charging $9 a day to use this library. But they do offer several digitized records pertaining to genealogy, and I will share a link to their digitized records for you guys. But if you ever get a chance to visit them, I urge you to do that. I wasn't aware that they were charging now, but there you go. Okay. The Vermont State Archives have an overwhelming amount of data. However, the digitized material is very limited. So if you do plan a visit, be sure to read their rules and their guidelines before going. State archives in this area are different. If you visited state archives out in the Midwest, in the southern areas, most of them are very well maintained. They offer you assistance. They welcome you. Certain colonies, like this is Vermont, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm just saying that you need to read over the guidelines and the rules and make your appointments. In some cases, you have to fill out registration forms, and you've got to give them a notice of when you're going to be there. And you need to have an idea of what records you are looking for. So you need to have an idea of exactly what you're looking for in Vermont. Okay? That's what I'm saying. It's a little different. Okay. Unlike other states, Vermont holds a vast amount of material on a local level. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about on the ground. I'm meaning local towns, local town halls, local museums, local historical societies, local genealogy societies. Not only do they have land deeds, but they have tons of vital records dating to the colonial period. This is where I do the majority of my work in this area on the ground. And how I do this, over the years, I have obtained friendships. I've created friends and that actually live in those areas. I start in a town setting, local, pinpoint my exact area that I'm concentrated on, pick out my timeline, go to my friend, and they go through the records. You need to get a friend if you're not in this area, because you have to have this information. This is where all the good treasures are. They're on a local level in the local town halls, local museums. That's where this information is. That's why I said what I did about the state archives. You're going to find majority of your original records on the ground in this area. Now, I have some very favorite towns in Vermont, okay? And two of them, one is Athens and the other one is Westminster. Why? Because their records date in Athens it's 1711, 1712. In Westminster, it's 1738, 36, and there's tons of them, tons of them. But Athens, those are my two favorites. Then Bennington, 1762 records date. And you're also going to find all kinds of marriage records, death record, you name it, you're going to find it there. Bolton, 1763. Burlington, 1763. Charlotte, 1763. Chester, 1766. Danby, 1762. Fairfax, 1763. Ferrisburg, 1755. Putney, 1753. Rockingham, 1752. Springfield, 1761. Wallingford, 1762. Wilmington, 1766. On the ground, local level. All of these contain land records, marriages, births, deaths, and more. Remember, always on a ground level in this area. Okay? I hope I'm not discouraging you guys too much. All right. Rhode Island. This is a book, Rhode Island Court Records, 1647 to 1670. It's a 2-volume set by Sharp, Curtis, and Isham, published 1920. Both volumes are digitized, and I will share the links with you after the live stream. Another book is The Records of the Colony of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations in New England, 1636 to 1665 by A.C. Green, published 1856 to 1865. It's a 7-volume set. Not all volumes have been digitized, but I will share the links for the ones that are available, and they are volumes 1, 2, 7, and 6, or volumes 1, 2, 6, and 7, and I will share those with you. With land, all land records, including deeds, probate, and vital records, are located in town records. Does that sound familiar? Just like Vermont, Rhode Island. I'll repeat that. All land records, including deeds, probate, and vital records, are located in town records. Marriages were required to be documented in 1647. Now, granted, not everyone's going to follow the rules, and they're not all going to document the marriages, but most majority did. So, look on the ground level. The marriages were required to be documented in 1647. The town council The town council records are the location for these treasures. The town council records. We have found land documents and materials filled with family information by way of attached letters and or other documents. Like Vermont, Rhode Island is best researched from town to town. Now, I hope that you can see why I get the maps first, because I want to see what was available in a certain time period. Where am I going? I'm traveling in the past. I'm traveling during the colonial period. So it's not going to do me very much good to go to modern day maps and see which towns are there. I need to know what was there in 1650, 1680, or 1647. Okay. I should have shared a list of maps with you guys, but I didn't get those ready. With church records, as of a few years ago, we determined that a great majority of the church records remain in the original parish location. But I will share a book. The Vital Record of Rhode Island, 1636 to 1850, is by James Arnold. It was published 1891 to 1912. This is a 21-volume set. Some volumes are digitized, and I will share those links with you. Those are volumes 5, 4, 11, 10, 18, 17, 16, 14, 21, 9, 13, and 19. They're all available and digitized online. They're indexed, they're searchable. So those containing vital records of Rhode Island from 1636 to 1850. Another book is Census of the Inhabitants of the Colony of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, 1774, by John Bartlett, published in 1858. This is also digitized and available online, and I will share a link with you. The New England colonies and the Middle colonies stored their records in different manners versus the Southern colonies. Research in the New England states thrive around Massachusetts and New York. They do. And if you are researching in Vermont, you're researching in Connecticut, you're researching in New Hampshire, you're going to find records in Massachusetts and New York. and maybe other places. But those two, you're also going to find records for those areas. Just keep that in mind. The middle colonies have records stored in Pennsylvania, and just like with Delaware. I feel that the most important factor to consider is first your timeline, and then learn how that fits into the area in which you're researching. Okay? It's a little different. Unless many of y'all may have been researching in this area for years, and you probably know more resources than I do. So, but all the sources that I've shared tonight are only a few of our favorites. So if you are searching for a specific source, then let us know. We're always here to help. There's no way that I have mentioned all the resources that I have used in these areas. Rhode Island, I really concentrated on Rhode Island several years back, 4 or 5 years ago, and it was fascinating because of Rhode Island's culture, their traditions, and I just wanted to know everything about them. I will say that in that one book that I mentioned, let me go back. It was on the Vital Record of Rhode Island, 1636 to 1850 by James Arnold. Keep in mind that we have found several discrepancies with those records. Not saying that, this one was published in 1891 to 1912. So Mr. Arnold may not have had all the information correct, or he got it from another source, but we did find several discrepancies in some of those volumes. So I did want to put that in there. Okay. All right, Whitney says, "Oh, I thank you and love you for your time." Well, we love you. And she's saying 1706. So tell me more about 1706. Did you have a question about 1706? Let's see. Tennessee man, my 10th grade, settled in Delaware, 1674, from Virginia. Captain John Avery. Wow. Thank you for the additional Delaware references. Yeah, Delaware it can be difficult, but don't give up. And if you just try to, don't rely on being frustrated and not finding too much online. And let me say this too about digitized online stuff for Delaware. I have found a lot of discrepancies with that as well. Try to stick to a local level with it, and I think you'll gain more ground that way, and you'll learn more that way. And it will also allow you to have access to even more records that otherwise, if you weren't doing ground research, you wouldn't have knowledge of that. I hope that makes sense. But Delaware can be difficult. But it can be fun and very rewarding. I want to say this too about these colonies. Because, with Piedmont Trails, we concentrate a lot on colonial migration, traveling down several roads when everybody was moving away from New England and the middle colonies and traveling elsewhere, westward and the south. And I just want to say that a lot of people tend to think that if they trace their ancestor to Pennsylvania, then that had to have been the area where they landed from the old world, coming to the new world. And I want you guys to leave that door open, because you just never know what you may find in colonies of Vermont once you really start digging, and in Delaware, Rhode Island, and other colonies that we get into. Like, I had ancestors who arrived in present-day Maine, which was ran by the Massachusetts colony, that at an early date. So don't speculate that just because, I can't find any, I can't find their father and I can't find their mother, so they must have been the ones that immigrated, and they immigrated to Pennsylvania. Don't leave that door open for just in case as you research further, because you just never know what you might find in these other colonies. Okay. All right. In wrapping up the video, we just released our latest podcast this week which discussed the Great Wagon Road project. We went into detail about how the Great Wagon Road affected my genealogy research and when I first got started. And then I went into detail about how we created the project and where we are today. And so we shared that on a podcast, and it was fun. We really enjoyed doing that. So our next podcast, we're going to offer more details about our attic files, what we have here. And we're going to share in more details about the families that we have, the areas that we've concentrated on since we began these files. And I think we need more storage too. Just looking at all this, it looks like part of it is a mess right now. But anyway, that will be our next podcast coming up. And that's basically pretty much it. We've got a few things coming up on PiedmontTrails.com on the website. We got some new articles coming out. And we're going to try and do 2 live streams for the month of July. That's our goal, because we have a lot of areas that we want to get to. We wanted to get to Great Britain. I want to try and do that next. England and Ireland. That's my goal. So we'll see what we can do with that. Hello from Virginia. Do you have any doors to 1800 Matthews or Old Kingston Parish? Not at the top of my head. I'm in New England. No, ma'am. I'm sorry. No, sir. I'm sorry. I don't. Not that comes to my head immediately. But listen, I'm always here to help. So if you want to send me a message, feel free to do so. Or you can go to the website and you can use the contact form, and that goes straight to PiedmontTrails.com, and I will get the message. Or you can email us directly at contact@PiedmontTrails.com. Okay? And I'll be happy to help. I'll do the very best that I can. All right. Our next live stream is going to be Colonial Records Part 4. It's dated for July the 7th, right after July 4th. Sunday, July the 7th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Until then, visit the website at PiedmontTrails.com. Listen to the latest podcast. Share with your friends. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, get the word out about the Great Wagon Road project, share about the Colonial Indentured Servants project, and all of our other projects that we've got going on. I hope you guys have a great week coming up, and thank you so much for joining me, and may God bless. Enjoy your journey to the past.